What would it be like to develop the ability to respond to every situation and every person with love rather than fear, judgment, irritation, or anger? For me, that is true freedom. Being able to choose your response regardless of what's going on out here. Hi, I'm Karen Seltz. This is Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. And tonight we're going to talk about how to achieve freedom under all conditions, choosing love under all conditions, which is freedom, right? So, did you know that the moment you think an unloving thought, it alters the chemical balance in your body? It inhibits the flow of energy. And it's the moment you think this unloving thought. You may experience it as tightness in your body. It might be anger, irritation, like we talked about a minute ago. It could even be sadness or depression. And I believe that depression is suppressing emotions that want to come up. It could be suppressing anger, which when I was depressed, I did not want to admit that I had any anger issues. Thus, I was depressed, right? It could also be not experiencing an emotion to its completion. And by that, I mean, like, you might experience a little bit of sadness and you're like, no, I don't have time for that. Or I need to be positive in order to manifest. There's this toxic positivity culture going on, and people are starting to talk about it as toxic now, which I'm so grateful for. But for a long time, it was stay positive, stay high vibe. And it's really not possible because we're human beings. We are meant to experience the whole array of emotions. It's a matter of being able to experience them and then allow them to come in and allow them to pass just as easily without attaching to them. And I'm going to give you an example of that because a lot of times we can attach to things like misery as an identity. Like, why is this stuff always happening to me? And you may know people like this. You may have been someone like that. I believe I was like that. I was very much a victim. I was never responsible for anything. Everybody did things to me. And I was powerless and I was miserable until I realized that I was creating it and I had a role. And I'm going to give you a recent example of this, of really knowing in my head that I am 100% responsible for everything. And that's a level of leadership that I play with a lot. It's not for everyone, but in transformational leadership programs, we invite people to try it on, to play with it, to see if it fits. And we play at the level of, I am responsible for everything. I created COVID. I created the wars everywhere they are in the world. I created the car accident that happened down the street. So it's really playing at a very high level and asking yourself, okay, why would I want that? Why would I want to create that? And there's always a reason if you are willing to play there. So I had a situation with a friend who is male and is married. And I felt like he wanted more from me than friendship. It just felt like unclean to me, the energy. And I'm an empath, so of course I think I'm right about it. And I struggled with, okay, how do I set this boundary without making it about the way he is making me feel? Because I know, at least intellectually, that it has nothing to do with him. So I actually reached out to a friend who is very good at this, and she walked me through a process where I could be 100% responsible for my feelings, for the stories I was making up, for my interpretation of what was going on. And then I could make a request, like, please don't say this thing when you text me. And so I did that. And that felt really good. Now I know better at this point than to respond like, you're doing this. I know better. So, but I'm not at the level of where we're going tonight, which is that freedom of response. Like for me, that event, in particular text, didn't feel neutral. And I do my best, and that's some language for you. I do my best. I don't try. I do my best to live by certain principles. Now, do I do it all the time? Of course not. I'm a human being. And anybody who expects you to do this all the time is just ridiculous. And I'm talking about you, right? Because we are, we hold ourselves to these standards that are so crazy. Most of us have these standards. Like when I first started out in the spirituality world, I'm like, okay, this is how I have to be. I have to be, have to. That's another term, right? That should tip you off. Should. I'm very big on language. That you are holding yourself to an impossible standard. So have to, there's an energy to it that's just icky. It's like constricted already, rather than I choose to, or I get to, or I want to. So just watch your language. Just start noticing it. Please don't judge yourself. Please don't beat yourself up for your language. You've been beating yourself up for enough things. So cut it out. Love on yourself. So now I forgot my point because I went off on a language tangent. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'll come back to that soon. The point that I wanted to make was, I don't know. Let's play. Let's see what happens. When we hold ourselves to these standards, there are certain things that tip us off in our language, like I have to, or I should, right? And when we start letting ourselves off the hook, like saying, oh, the spiritual thing. So when I first learned these principles, I thought that just because I knew them in my head, I would start behaving that way. And when I didn't, it was painful. I'm like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm like, ugh. It just felt heavy. And not only that, but I was in a relationship at the time. I would talk as if I were already there spiritually, like I already had embodied all these principles. But then I would show up down here like an ego, like, like doing all these behaviors to try to get love and to manipulate. And it's so when you notice the gap, just take a smaller bite and notice when you do things the way you want to, because what you focus on expands. I say it a million times, and it is proven in neuroscience. We are wired with a negativity bias. So that means we are wired to see what's not working, where we're falling short. And trust me, we'll find it all the time in ourselves and in others because it's wired to our survival. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're not. You're amazing. It just means that that's your wiring. And we get to become aware of it. And when you catch it, you're like, okay, yeah. And what's good about this? Or what did I do right? What did I do well? And start catching yourself in the act of doing something well, something that is a desired behavior, because there are a zillion of those every day. And when I was doing transformational leadership coaching, I used to coach the coaches, and I would give them this stretch, if they chose it, to catch themselves doing something right at least 3 to 5 times a day. Like, what did you do well? What can you give yourself a pat on the back for? Because no one else is going to do it most of the time, especially if you're not doing it for yourself. So it's like, it's a little act of self-love, but it also is signaling your reticular activating system, which is the filter of the brain. It tells, you tell it what to look for, what's important to you. It's telling it, look for more instances where I'm doing something that I want to do, a desired behavior. Look for instances when I'm showing up as loving. And it will find more of them when you tell it to look for those. It'll find them. And then you say, oh my gosh, I'm not such a piece of crap after all. Which is a nice feeling because, I don't know. I grew up thinking that that there was something wrong with me, that I was defective. And I was always aiming for that perfection standard, which I never hit. And it was a tough place to be. And I know many of you can relate to that. So, freedom is choosing love under all conditions. So I had this situation a few weeks ago where I posted a short on YouTube, and it was about coming home to yourself. And really, it was about honoring the feelings that were coming up for you, not staying in them, but just like honoring them and loving all the parts of yourself, because none of them are really unlovable. And a man commented, and he said something like, feelings are for women and children. Why don't people just need to get jobs and be productive, or something like that? And I disagree. I don't know. It was something like that. And at first, honestly, I thought it was funny. I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny because I am a woman, and then there was a part of me that, I'm right now concentrating on building up my YouTube channel. And I know how the algorithm works. The more people that comment, or the more comments there are, the more YouTube will push that video out to more people. So I'm like, oh, he commented. More people are going to see this. So there was a part of me that was very happy that he commented. So when I sat with it for a few minutes, I went back to this concept from The Way of Mastery, or A Course in Miracles, that everything that's coming from another person or from you is either an extension of love or a call for healing, or a call for love. Like, I need love, I want love, I don't feel loved, or I have love and I'm going to extend it to you. So one of those two things, pretty black and white. And I was faced with a moment of a choice, right? Like, how do I respond? How do I respond from a truthful place that is loving? Because that's who I am at my core. I am super loving. I mean, I love people. I love them. And yes, I get triggered by people that are close to me, but by strangers, not usually. I don't have any charge on that. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. So I thought for a minute, and I really just dropped into my heart. And I'm like, okay, what would you have me say? So I said something very simple, like, thank you for taking the time to comment. I appreciate you. And it was true, because he actually took time out of his schedule to comment. I mean, I don't know, for me, that's like a big deal. I don't think I'm that important, in a humble, normal way. And he wrote back, like, thank you for responding to my comment. And I said, of course, you matter. And he wrote back this: you matter too. And in that moment, it really hit me how much of an impact we can have when we come from an open heart and a loving perspective. Like, he felt my energy. He knew I wasn't blowing smoke up his ass. He just knew it, and he felt it. And in that moment, I felt my oneness with the divine. I felt my oneness with God. I felt my oneness with that man and with all of humanity. Because that's the truth of who we all are. We all have the ability to affect people. And it could be as simple as a smile or a loving thought in your head. Now, I started out by saying, when you think an unloving thought, it changes the chemicals in your body. It stops the flow of energy. A loving thought does the opposite. It's loving every single cell and atom of your body. And then it expands your energy field. Energy knows no bounds. So when you think a loving thought, you are affecting every other person on the planet. Think about that. Wrap your head around that. When you think a loving thought, you are affecting every other soul on this planet. That's how powerful you are. That's how powerful your intention is. That's how powerful your heart is. Practice. Practice. If you have a relative or a friend that doesn't live near you, for example, they live across the country or across the globe somewhere, think about that person and hold them in your heart and just wish them well. Think about, oh, I wish that they're happy. I wish they're healthy. I wish they're whole and peaceful. And I wish that they're abundant. And focus on the positive, not what you don't want for them. I hope they're not unhappy, like, because the unconscious mind and the universe only hear the positives. So what do you wish for them? And when you do that, they will feel it. It doesn't matter where they are, they will feel it. A lot of times they'll call you or like, gosh, you just popped into my mind and I really felt called to reach out to you. But the other benefit, and you're not going to do it for this reason, but the other benefit is you are giving that to yourself because there's nothing outside of you. So when you think an unloving thought about someone else, your subconscious mind hears it about you. So if you think, oh, that person's a pain in the ass or unlovable or whatever, your subconscious mind hears, I am a pain in the ass. I am unlovable. And we don't realize that. Like, we're not taught that in school. So when you wish ill on anyone, your subconscious mind interprets that as you. When you wish love on other people, your subconscious mind interprets that as you. And you will feel it. And you will fall in love with yourself. The more you practice it, the more you practice loving other people, no matter what. And of course, all right, I'm going to give you the warnings. When you say, okay, I'm going to practice this, yeah, just wait. All the people that are your messiahs, your greatest teachers, will show up to trigger the F out of you. And you get to practice. And you're probably going to mess it up many times before you catch yourself. And the universe is kind, it's loving, and it is a classroom. It will continue to send you people. Okay, well, you messed that one up. I'm going to send you another one. Okay. And a lot of times it's the people close to us that really trigger us, or coworkers. And say it's a coworker. Here's some questions you could ask yourself. All right, what are the characteristics in this person that drive me crazy? What are the characteristics in this person that I don't like, that drive me crazy, that grate me, whatever it is? And then just make a list. And that's kind of a fun little assignment. You can keep a list. Okay, she's selfish, she's self-absorbed, whatever. Whatever your list is, it could be anything. And then after you get a good list going, and you get some quiet time, don't do this at work. Take it home and then ask yourself, okay, when was I ever selfish? And just write down a couple instances. When was I ever self-absorbed? And you write down a couple instances. And then you can also write down, what are my judgments about people who are selfish? What are my judgments about people who are self-absorbed? What are the stories that I grew up with around people that were selfish or self-absorbed or wealthy, or, whatever the words are that trigger you? What are the stories that I grew up hearing? And a lot of times when we hear those stories, we take those on as beliefs. Now, I've mentioned this in the past, but one of my big triggers was selfish. And my mom would use that word about people, and it meant that for me, it meant they were unlovable. Like, if you were selfish, you were the lowest of the lowest, and you didn't deserve to exist. So you might as well just go off in the woods and kill yourself. I mean, it was really intense for me. So what are those stories? Are you believing those? Because there's not a single characteristic that you don't have, because we all have everything. We are holistic beings. We have every single characteristic within us. And bringing those pieces back in is part of reclaiming your wholeness. It's part of saying, you know what, there's no part of me that's unlovable. The moment you're able to do that, well, you'll be an enlightened master. But the moment you're able to do it even once, okay, is the moment you stop projecting your shit onto other people. And the moment you can say, oh my gosh, I see that person is calling for healing. They feel like maybe they're unlovable, or maybe, they need a hug right now. Who knows? Just trust yourself. But when you get to that moment where you're not triggered by someone who's selfish anymore, then you won't be triggered about it. You'll accept the parts of you that are selfish, and you'll start to love yourself more, which will allow you to love others more, which is so beautiful. And one of the prayers that really supports me in this process is, God, universe, source, spirit, whoever you pray to, help me to see this person through your eyes. Help me to see this person as innocent, because I know that's how you see them. We are all 100% lovable. There is no part of us that's not lovable. There's no characteristic that's unlovable. We have all of them. And if you want to take it even further, you could even write down, what are the gifts of this characteristic? What are the gifts? Like one that's really fun is like a bitch. You're a bitch. Okay. So what are some of the gifts of being a bitch? Well, people don't walk all over you, right? They know you're not going to take it. So they don't even try. If a contractor comes to your house and does some substandard work, you will stand up and you will get it corrected, right? You're the person people go to like, oh, I don't know what to say here. Can you handle this for me? Like they give you the difficult situations because they know you can handle them. So there's always gifts in all of them. Selfish is another, or generous. Selfish and generous, right? So selfish, if you say yes to everything because you're so afraid of being selfish, what do you have left for the things that really matter to you? Nothing. What do you have left for yourself? Nothing. What do you have left for your family? Nothing. Like just resentment. So play with this. I invite you to just really play and get clear on what are your triggers. And you can even like write down some of your beliefs about the world. You know, the world is unfair. The world is unkind. You know, just these blanket statements that you believe without realizing you're believing these things. Because remember, a belief is just a thought that we've continued to think over and over and over until we no longer think it. We just accept it as a fact. And beliefs are not facts. Right in the middle of the word is a 3-letter word, L-I-E. Remember that. Lie. Beliefs are lies. Because every belief you have, I can find a million people that have a different one. So it's not a fact. If it were a fact, everybody would have the same beliefs, and then they would have the exact same results, because our beliefs then determine what we get in life, what we experience, what we have as possessions, what our relationships look like. And that's some deep work. It's not fun, but it's rewarding at the end of the day. So I encourage you to really start keeping the journal, number one, of people that trigger you, like what are their characteristics? And then when you go home and you're quiet, okay, when have I ever been this? Okay. And then love yourself. Like, what are the gifts of that characteristic? And maybe then you'll even decide like, I could embody that more. I'm going to practice being a bitch or whatever it is. I'm going to practice being selfish. Because the other part is the flip side of every characteristic is usually something that you want, something desirable. So selfish, for me, the opposite is generous. And if I am not selfish, there's an ant on my screen, that's so funny. If I'm not selfish at all, I can't be generous. I have nothing left to give. And it's the same with every characteristic. So maybe bitchiness is compassion. If you refuse to be a bitch ever, it's hard to really have compassion for people, especially if they're bitches. Oh my gosh, I cracked myself up. I think I will leave you with that because that was funny. This is like my mic drop moment. Boom! Thank you so much for watching Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. I would love your comments. Let me know if anything in here served you and what you did with it, how it served you. Are you going to implement it in your life? And what agreements are you going to make with yourself? What's your intention moving forward now that you know this? Let me know. I'll talk to you next week. I'll be right here. Bye.